From FS Securities. We are an education and information firm on the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. And every Monday morning I go through what happened last week and how the market finished and try to forecast what we may see these coming days and weeks. I'll show you how investors and traders can make money on our stock market. I'll show you what is hot and what is not, and what you should hold and what and what you should fold. And by the way, if you like the presentation, why don't you actually rate it, share it, review it, and maybe you can actually give us some feedback. All right, well, let's see what happened overnight. On Saturday, we've seen that the market was, the Dow was down 63 points. However, it had two beautiful days the previous weeks. Actually, this is a weekly change. If you look at 3 weeks ago, the market finished at 25,800, and on Saturday the market finished at 26,671. The S&P 500 also a major increase from 3 weeks ago, and on Saturday it finished 0.3% higher, 9 points. The Nasdaq, the same thing, again 3 beautiful rising days. And in Europe, the Stoxx 50 index, which comprises most major European markets, was almost flat on Saturday. However, you can see 3,294 3 weeks ago. And this morning we can see that Europe finished last week with 3,365. Okay, on our market, you can see here 6,033, actually below where were we about 3 weeks ago, despite the increase by 23 points on Friday. And the futures this morning expect the market to open flat. Gold 1,810, well above 1787 several weeks ago. Silver 1976, again higher than 3 weeks ago. And Brent oil $43.14. And West Texas crude oil $40.59, almost very steady. However, you can see that the Brent oil is about slightly up 50 cents, about 50 cents in the last 3 weeks. Okay, the Australian dollar 69.9, let's call that 70 cents, where it was 69.4 several weeks ago. I will give you 61.2 euro cents and 55.7 British pence and 106 New Zealand. Looking at what happened over 2 weeks. This is 1 week change, and then we compare the 2 weeks combined. So for instance, the Dow was up 2.3% last week. However, the week before also had a good week, and combining the 2 weeks together, we can see a rise of 6.6%. The Nasdaq last week was down, however, over 2 weeks was still up. And the same thing with the S&P 500. So the market in America, despite last week's slight drop in the Nasdaq, we've had really 2 beautiful weeks rising. And the Australian dollar was actually 1.9, let's call that 2% higher than it was 2 weeks ago. Okay, gold $27.30 US. That's increased over 2 weeks. Less than half of it came last week. So we've had 2 weeks of rising prices in gold. Silver, the same thing, finished 10% over 2 weeks. Crude oil, that's the West Texas crude oil. Despite slight drop last week, we had 6.3% rise over 2 weeks. And if you're interested to have a look at any of those futures, any of those commodities, all you have to do is talk to us and we'll help you out on how to trade them. Now looking at the Dow, this is the Dow weekly, the Dow daily, and this is our market, the ASX weekly and ASX daily. So you can see that with the green candle, despite it finished below the highest level of the week, we're still having that particular line, that black dotted line, which is the 21-week moving average, as being the support line. So even though if we might see a drop in the next few days, we may see the 25,249 to be the support line, and it may hit the upper range of the Bollinger Band. So anyway, we happen to be in the positive end of the Bollinger, the positive half of the Bollinger Band. This is actually the moving average of the 21 week moving average, two standard deviation up and 2 standard deviations down. And you can see that here that obviously there is more squeeze here than down here. The parabolic stop and reverse is showing a bullish trend, and the stochastic, if you can see here, the stochastic is slightly up, which is good. On the daily, we can see that the 50-day moving average has crossed the 100-day moving average some time ago, and since that happened, obviously you can see here the market has continued to go higher despite 3 days of lack of green candles here. So it actually got out of the upper band, and as you know, the Bollinger Band dictates that most, or 60 or 98% of all the closing prices should be inside the 2 bands. The upper band, 2 standard deviation up from the moving average, and the lower band, 2 standard deviation from the same moving average. Looking at our market, we are squeezed between the 50% retracement from the highest early in the year to the very lowest point of 4,400 something, and we managed to get up very quickly above the 50%, and we stayed in that area here. Are we likely to see a climb over the 61.8 Fibonacci retracement? Well, look at the indicators. The stochastic is bullish. The parabolic stop and reverse, those dots are bullish. The 9-day moving average just managed to touch the 21, and if it actually crosses above it, we're likely to see further increases in our market. And that's the weekly. If you look at the daily, stochastic bullish, parabolic stop and reverse bullish, the 9-day above the 21-day moving average, that's bullish. The candles for quite a number of days happen to be above the 21-day moving average, which is actually very positive. It touched the upper band, the 6,080 something, and dropped. We're likely to see that as being the resistance, maybe sometime below 7,000, who knows. Remember that 7,211 was the highest point that we've seen in several months, and obviously we might see the 6,000 or just slightly below the 6,000 as being the support line, which is the 21-day moving average. The good sign is that the 50-day moving average has crossed above the 100, but all the candles happen to be slightly below the 200-day moving average. On the Dow, on the other hand, all those candles on the daily, 1, 2, 3, 4, happen to be above the 200-day moving average. That is absolutely very, very bullish. So don't expect that we're going to see drastic drop in the American market. Remember, there's an election coming up in November, and any rabbits can come out of that Trump hat. So beware of that. Now, looking at the mechanical system that we have designed, this is the weekly. We only change those colors, those trends once a week. However, every day we change them according to the changes in the indicators. We look for 5 out of 8 in the monthly and 5 out of 8 in the weekly to confirm the investor trend. And we look at the weekly versus the daily for the conservative trader and aggressive trader. So anyway, we look at the Dow. The Dow has turned bullish on Saturday after falling into neutral territory the week before. And if you look, it had a first sign of bearishness 2 weeks ago. However, the Nasdaq continues to be bullish, slightly weaker with the conservative trader. The S&P 500 strongly bullish. Gold bullish only for the long-term investor, because remember, it stayed bullish because they only change based on monthly and weekly, and that take time for the indicators on the weekly and the monthly to change. So I would be very, very careful, especially going from bullish to neutral back to bullish. So there is a big volatility here. Silver, on the other hand, we are very strongly bullish on silver. Crude oil, neutral. And the Australian dollar, little bit more strongly bullish for the aggressive and the very aggressive trader. Aggressive trader trades from one week to another, and the very aggressive trader trades from one day to another. The euro is very strongly bullish, and the British pound bullish only for the aggressive and the very aggressive trader. And look for the daily, and by the way, the weekly and the daily have to confirm to be able to go into a particular direction. So nothing changes. This, by the way, are the same as that column. So let's go back to Thursday morning, or Friday morning, I would say, and we had a bullish signal for the Dow. We had a neutral for gold, but strongly bullish for silver, and we've been bullish for silver for a number of days. The Australian dollar, again, we turned bullish for the investor, having traded very close to 70 US, and strongly bullish against the euro. Okay, now looking at the sectors, you can see here, that's the weekly and the daily. Most sectors happen to be bullish with the exception of energy and industrial. And if you want to know what's inside the industrial or inside the energy, I can actually give you some guidance about the stocks being traded in those sectors. Now looking at our stocks, we start with the weekly. You can see that on the weekly, this is what happened on Saturday morning. We've turned from bearish for the XJO, 2 weeks of bearishness, to strongly bullish here. And BHP continues to be strongly bullish. And Rio, again, but only bullish for the aggressive and the very aggressive trader. So you really want to trade bullish BHP, and you want to trade bearish Woodside Petroleum. And by the way, this presentation will be on the website shortly, so all you have to do is go to the website, and if you're not a member, all you have to do is to actually take the 15-day free trial. And that's, by the way, what happened on a week to week. On a week change, AMP was up nearly 5%. However, the week before was slightly down. So over 2 weeks, we're still up nearly 5.6%. Rio, we were actually up 8% over 2 weeks. And going down further, on the weaker side, Bramble, even though it went up by 1.8% last week, over 2 weeks combined, down 11%. ANZ down 3.8%. CBA was higher. NAB was down 3.4%. And Westpac down 3.5%. And Woodside Petroleum continues to be very bearish. Okay, on the daily side, you can see that the last daily movement, and that's the day before, BHP continues to be bullish, and we went up on Friday by 0.4%. However, the day before we were down 0.6%. Rio was up, the sectors on the daily, and 0.6% slight increase on Friday. However, a drop of 1.4 over 2 days. Woodside Petroleum is probably the best trade for us. We were actually down 1.4% on Thursday, the day before, and we were down 1.1% on Friday. The market overall, the XJO, was up 23 points on Friday. That is up 0.4%. However, it was down 0.7% the day before. Okay, we would like to look at volume. Remember on Friday, 30% of all the stocks advanced and 29% declined, and the volume was lower. We've had a decrease in volume in the last 4 days. Look what happened previously, and you can see the trend. The volume is actually coming down. And it's interesting to see that when the market is up, what happens to the volume. I think it's very important to see whether when the market is up, it brings the mums and dads into the market and the institution, and when the market goes down in general, you know, people sit on the sidelines. So it's important to actually compare the advances and decline with the volume of the day across the whole market. And looking at the last 5 days, we put the 5 days together, we are almost equal for advances and decline. However, decline slightly above advances. Okay, now we go to announcement today. In Japan, we've got the monetary policy, trade balance in Japan. Nothing really exciting here, nothing really serious, especially from the US. However, when you look at results that we've seen previously, on the 50-week volume, what we do here, this, for instance, company RIA, it went up by 6% over last week. The volume over 50-week moving average, so we look at the volume every week for 50 weeks, and we find that RIA every week trades about 8.5 million transactions. Well, last week they had 10.1 million transactions, so the price moves up, the volume goes up. That's very, very positive. And Wesfarmers had 2.3% rise in the price and slightly higher in the volume, above the average. Sonic continues to appear on our radar, another nearly 2% up in the price, but the volume was almost steady with the average. Nothing on the down for the top 50. Now for the aggressive and the very aggressive traders, we've got HUB24 up nearly 14% in the price, and the volume is nearly double. Sandfire 6% up in the price over the week and slightly up in the volume. Dacian Gold, this continues to appear day after day. The price went up down by 23% and the volume was nearly up 3 times. So this is actually one company that is not doing very well in gold, especially when gold goes up. Okay, now we look at the daily. We look at 50 days volume. We work out the average, and here we see South 32 over 50 days. The average volume is 19.2. Well, last day on Friday, the volume was 23.5 million. 22% above the average, and the price went up by 4%. That's a good sign for South 32. Fortescue Mine, 1.7% up in the price and 13% above the average. ASX down 0.3% and only 10% increase in the volume. HUB24, we've seen that in the weekly as well. Okay, finally the disclaimer. Everything we said here is only for general advice only, and before you take any action, please consult with us or with your professional advisor. Remember, there is risk in trading and you need to understand your risk appetite. And before you trade, be careful. So if you have any questions, all you have to do is ask. And if you want to ask us some questions, these are our details. You can write to me at george@fs. FS stands for full service. george@fssecurities.com.au. You can ring me on my mobile. If you ring me from overseas, 61 is the country code. You don't need the 0. 61 411 259526. If you're ringing me from a local phone in Australia, anywhere in Australia, 0411 259526. Happy trading, and I hope you make some money.